Alright, this is a casting that I bought off of eBay about a year ago. When I was a kid, my very first memories of my diecast collection before my dad started sending Hot Wheels and Matchbox from overseas from the US before we finally immigrated over to the States. One of my first memories was two Corgi WhizzWheels, and this casting in pink metallic was one of them. I've never seen another one in the same color. One of these days I'm going to post a video of the original. It's hidden away in a cigar box. I lost track of where it is exactly. But it's a WhizzWheels just like this. It's an Ital design Bizzarini Manta. 1968, I believe, is the year that this thing debuted. It's one of the first of what could be described as the wedge cars. Ridiculous, absolutely awesome car. Years later, of course, here I am in the U.S. and driving a 1968 Camaro. Years back, first-gen Camaros and Chevys in general were my love affair. I found out, many, many years after I was a kid and fell in love with this little toy car. Again, the original that my dad had was pink metallic. Almost what could be described as like a Spectre Flame type deal. They're trying to imitate Hot Wheels, possibly. Or vice versa, who knows. This is a 327 Chevy powered concept car. So Ital Design sort of did a modern version, or I shouldn't say modern version, their own GM powered version of what would later be a De Tomaso Pantera type deal, where it was an V8 fire breathing American V8 pushrod engine in a wild Italian body. The central driving position, of course, as a kid, I thought that was ridiculous. I thought it was silly and fun and cool. I didn't even realize that this was a real car. I thought this was, it's a toy. And just like Hot Wheels did fantasy cars, throughout my early childhood into my teen years, like I said, until I read up on this car in a book, subsequently, about a book on Italian concept cars from the sort of 60s and 70s. I didn't know that this was a real car. The original was painted a wild sort of almost like a seafoam green. I don't even know how to describe it. It's almost a turquoise. It's a weird color. It had sort of kind of a hybrid system of a pop-up headlight. As you can tell, there are what looks like a pop-up headlight, but the headlights themselves were mostly showing here under this front lip, and then it looks like the headlight cover just kind of lifted up, almost like the Alfa Romeo Montreal, if anybody's familiar with those. So I bought this casting. It was one of many I've seen on eBay over the years. It was hot pink, not metallic, hot pink, an obnoxious kind of Pepto-Bismol pink. That's not what I have. I don't know if my dad had a prototype or some weird thing from the 70s. Maybe they did this casting over after Hot Wheels came out and tried to sort of emulate Spectre Flame. But one of these days I'm going to get down to the bottom of it and then see if it's actually something rare and valuable. Of course, it's fairly worn and beat up, and that is what it is. But I stripped this hot pink one down. It was actually kind of sort of restored, but in a really crappy manner. They used what looked like a touch-up paint marker on it. It was terrible. I hated it. And I'm not a fan of the hot pink in general. So I stripped this car down, painted it top to bottom in a nice crimson red, blood red, fire engine red, whatever you want to call it. And actually the paint's still a tiny bit wet, not tacky, but just earlier today it was still drying on the back porch. So anyway, this is what I've got so far, and I don't know whether I should be putting. I kind of almost want to put appropriate wheels on this. It had these weird. It almost looked like Coke bottle cap Mercedes wheels, and of course WhizzWheels and Corgis had only a few different set of wheels that they used, and this was one of the sets that they put on almost everything in the 60s, and so that this is the wheels it has. But again, I'm kind of thinking maybe I should put the appropriate wheels on there that would make sense, that would look appropriate. Oh, and before I forget, check out this intricate, wild suspension setup. This is actually quite typical for those years. Even Hot Wheels had a similar setup. And by the way, here's just a flake of that hot pink that's left over. Like I said, this was hot pink. It was not metallic on this car. But the original, my dad's original, is. And it's, again, just squirreled away somewhere safe. It's not like it's lost or anything. I have a cigar box that has sort of like the most rare and oldest stuff tissue wrapped in it. And I took those out of rotation. They're not on display in my parents' house or here up in New Hampshire. Let me show you one more time, put back together. Google this car if you are not familiar with it, because man, it is cool. The real deal is wild. The interior, the proportions. It's a really neat vehicle. I really do need to epoxy this thing back together. I'm going to use JB Weld once I sort out this wheel situation. But I kind of tempted to just leave it alone. Just pop it back together. The interior is already white, which is pretty awesome. I think the blood red works very well. And I think maybe just leave well enough alone. Fresh paint. Just put it on a shelf and call it a day. But I thought it would look nice in red. I've never seen one in red. There's plenty of people who've made models of them or restored these Corgis. There's a 1/43 scale that I saw recently somewhere, probably Instagram. But man, this thing is cool. Actually, as a little bonus, I got one thing I'm going to show you guys. This is also a Corgi's Junior WhizzWheels. Similar time period. I also have this casting, and as a kid, I absolutely destroyed this poor thing. I broke off the windshield and just, I played with it very rough, I'm sure. I don't have any recollection of that, of course. My dad used to always say that he kind of regretted giving it to me to play with because it got destroyed. And that later on in my life turned into I very much took care of my Hot Wheels and did not smash them or, destroy them with rocks and firecrackers like a lot of kids in the U.S., which is why I have thousands of the things now, and me and my daughter still collect them. But let me show you this thing real quick out of the package. This one is also off eBay. eBay has always been an invaluable resource for me. It's one of my favorite places to get diecast stuff. Usually, believe it or not, cheaper than a lot of the antique stores and thrift stores in my area. It's a Corgi Junior WhizzWheels. They call it a GP beach buggy. I mean, it's a mayor's Manx. That's basically what it is, right? I mean, we all kind of know that that's what made these things a household name, the beach buggy. But whatever it is, it's pretty awesome. Doesn't have headlights, but the windshield and proportioning and everything else is about right. And look at that packaging. Pretty good condition. I did not pay a ton of money for this. And actually, I'm going to give this to my father as sort of a, hey, remember that time I destroyed that beach buggy that you had from the 1970s? See, this one's 1973. And there we have the Bizzarini. Definitely the coolest car of the bunch, although the beach buggy is up there too. Need to get that 280 Pagoda and the VW Bug one of these days. Actually, obviously the paint-free Modelo Ferrari would be cool too.